Hello, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about the first episode of Miss Marvel. Now, this is a show that I have been anticipating for a while, ever since it was initially discussed way back when, whenever Kevin Feige revealed that it was going to be taking place with all the other shows that he talked about when that whole slate reveal happened. And I was honestly unsure whether or not I would love the show, how I'd feel about things once the actual episode aired, simply because it was going to be our first representation of a South Asian superhero character, and this is really the only shot that we have with the current Marvel landscape, as far as I'm aware, to have a South Asian superhero. In this case, obviously, we're talking about Miss Marvel, and as a South Asian person myself, a person of South Asian descent, I was curious to see whether or not they would pull it off and have it feel authentic while also not feeling heavy-handed and forced. Overall, I think that they did a wonderful job with that particular aspect of the show. We definitely get to see cultural aspects of this character of Kamilla being a Pakistani person and living in an American society, specifically the dichotomy of having your parents being immigrants and also having to balance between the world in which you're actually living in through school, through your friends, and the larger world, but also the difference between that and having your own home life being a lot more oriented around your culture or historical culture through your family members. And I think this is a potential idea that most children of immigrants, if not all, have to face in some way, shape, or form, and I think they did a good job of highlighting that in this episode. Furthermore, the visuals were phenomenal. I mean, there are a couple of things here before going into the actual spoilers that I would say were mind-blowing, specifically in one scene where like messages are being sent back and forth, the way that they chose to portray that whole thing. I think that was done in a very creative and fun manner, and also like just the way that we get to follow Kamilla throughout the story and see what's going on in her brain. I just think that was very, very well done. Now, let's get into more specifics about the characters. So if you haven't actually watched the episode, I'd suggest jumping off here and then coming back afterwards. In regards to Kamilla herself, I really think that this actress did a wonderful job portraying what it's like to be a child of South Asian descent, where your parents are immigrants and having to kind of fit in and navigate within that world through your friends, through school, as well as through trying to pull apart or separate your life between being at home and school. Now, more specifically, I think the things with like AvengerCon, as well as the values that her parents are trying to push onto her, and the disconnect that exists there, as well as like the feeling of not really fitting in as well, all being shown very well throughout this episode. I think that all of that is pretty spot on with most people who don't have parents that grew up here, and I really, really respected that they made that feel very authentic. And I just gotta say props to the actress to also making it believable when things didn't necessarily go her way. I mean, she wasn't hating her parents in whatever moments occurred, specifically when her parents said that she couldn't go to Avengers Con. Also, with her reaction to like what her parents tried to do for her with the whole Hulk costume. I mean, all of that felt very real and like something that I guess Asian parents, or specifically like if my parents, probably would have done something similar to that if they felt like I was potentially having to go somewhere that they didn't necessarily approve of. I mean, I feel like if I was younger, that my parents would probably do something similar. That being said, I want to jump into specifically the family dynamic at this point. The little pieces here with the statements that aren't just necessarily in English, where we see, I believe the mom says "chalo" a few times, which means like "let's go" or something along those lines, and then also like the few hints of their religious aspects of their family as well. I mean, nothing is heavy-handed, and it all feels like an actual authentic household. Similarly, I mean, the idea that when Camilla's friend comes over, that her mom like gives him a pile of different food and stuff like that. It just feels very, very authentic. Similarly, we also have the talk of how like the more traditional folks react to someone not necessarily meeting those traditional expectations, with how the mom talks to one of her friends. I mean, all that stuff seems very, very realistic and believable, and it all varies, right, depending on who you are and how your parents are and things like that. But I think as a baseline, like, this is pretty accurate as to what most people can identify with and at least see parts of your family in this, whether or not you're just South Asian or if you're an immigrant regard or like an immigrant family. Like, I think that this is very, very well done. Similarly, like the dynamic with the brother and how Kamilla isn't able to go to AvengerCon and how the brother tries to help. I mean, that seemed very, very similar to how it would feel if like something like that happened with, say, me or my sister when we were in high school or something. Like, I feel like that would definitely be a similar situation. At the very least, like, not necessarily exactly the same, but like trying to find a way to convince parents to let you do things. I mean, I think that's something that not necessarily just in this situation, but like any siblings that have like a decent rapport with one another would try to figure out and do for one another. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention a little bit more about the visuals, because I feel like I only mentioned like that for a few seconds, but the way that they sent messages to one another in specific, when Kamilla found out that she couldn't go to AvengersCon or whatever, and she was talking to her friend, I mean, the way that they chose to show each message through different like LED lights and things like that, like, it just looked so cool. And I just gotta give props to the special effects team, because like they did a phenomenal job with that. Similarly, I mean, the way that they were talking with one another earlier or throughout the episode, with how they were going to enact a plan so that Kamilla could like sneak out, also with like how she was going to finish her Miss Marvel cosplay and everything, like the visuals of all of that, like the animation, I mean, fantastic, because you really feel like you're seeing directly what's going on in Camilla's head, and it seems like she has some type of difficulty paying attention to things and keeping track of what's going on, or like really paying attention. And honestly, I really identified that, especially when I was younger. I had a ton of trouble not like just being in daydreams all day, and especially I feel like that's something that a lot of creative people have, like where it's like where your brain is always wandering and like thinking about random things, trying to doodle or trying to create something. Like, that just felt so right to me, and I just really appreciated the way that they visualized that as well. Let's talk about AvengersCon. Now, the actual process of getting to AvengersCon was a hot mess, and I feel like it just felt very fun the way that they were doing it while everything was going wrong. But also, like, once they were there, it felt very much like how a fan would feel in this world, because it feels so believable. This is just how I feel about everything from this episode. It all feels authentic, whether it's the cultural stuff, whether it's the fangirling parts of Camilla's character, whether it's like the dynamic with her friend. I mean, the one thing I will say is the level of technical prowess of her friend may be a little bit outside of the normal realms of believability, but that being said, we are in the Marvel universe and we have a bunch of geniuses out there. I mean, we have Peter Parker, we got all these great minds that exist in this world. I mean, it makes sense for the context, right? That being said, like, the actual Avengers, right? The visuals here, I think, looked absolutely phenomenal, and you felt like a kid in a candy store walking in, and I think that was the entire point. Also, the way that her powers end up manifesting when she puts on the bracelet, all of that looked really cool. I mean, her powers are super intriguing as well, but her going up, finding out that someone from school who she used to be like somewhat acquainted with, who is now like super popular and everything, is at this competition, and now she's feeling insecure. Like, it just really feels like an authentic look at how you would feel being self-conscious about yourself, being unsure of how to talk to your parents or how to go about being at this type of an event. I mean, all of it just felt really authentic. I feel like I've said that like a bajillion times at this point, but it's just the one word that keeps coming to my brain as to how this show felt, and so I'm just gonna keep using it. Specifically about her powers, I mean, I'm very curious to know exactly how her abilities work, what they are. Are they specifically about her like biology? Is that how the bracelet's reacting, or is it the bracelet in its entirety? I mean, I'm curious about this, because if it's simply the bracelet, what if someone steals it? Because the question here is, like, she is still a child, right? What if her mom takes it for whatever reason, being like, why'd you take this from the attic or whatever, it's junk? Or what if someone else finds out as to where her powers are coming from? I mean, that leaves a huge vulnerability there, so I'm very curious about how they're going to deal with that. I think the easiest route would be to say that it is like maybe somehow linked to her biology, because I believe this bracelet belonged to her mother, or her grandmother rather. And also with the bracelet itself, I gotta say it does look somewhat akin to like if a bunch of bangles were fused together and then like very like roughed with time. I mean, that's just kind of the vibes that I get here. So it looks very much like something that I would consider like a South Asian type of bracelet, and I just thought that that was also a very nice touch there. Specifically with her powers, I think they look very cool, and I think that it matches with what they're trying to do in lining up all the Marvel's characters, right? With Miss Marvel, with I believe Spectrum, yeah, I think Spectrum is what Monica is supposed to be called, and then Miss Marvel, I think all their power sets look somewhat similar now, although very distinctive, but the overall like light emanating aspect and things like that look similar. So I do appreciate that as like why they're trying to change her power set here. I will say I don't know too much about her powers beyond her ability to being able to embiggen her arms and stuff like that. I think she's somewhat similar to Mr. Fantastic, but I don't think it's like specifically one-to-one there. Also, I think originally she was an Inhuman. I don't think she's a mutant, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. That being said, I am very excited to see what comes next, because I want to know more about how the family is going to react, what's going to happen with like this whole mess at AvengerCon, and how the authorities are going to get involved moving forward. I mean, I am hyped for the next episode. I was not expecting this. I initially thought that this would be more of a kid-oriented show where it just felt like, oh, it'd be really good if you are in high school or middle school or something like that. But if you're an adult, maybe it's no longer in your range of interest. But no, I think they did a wonderful job with leaving a lot for anyone of any age to be able to watch this show, and it felt just like Disney is getting stronger and stronger with their storytelling. I feel like this year, specifically with what Moon Knight did and what I'm seeing in this first episode, I think the Marvel shows from Disney Plus are just going to keep getting better and better. That being said, I don't have much more to say here. I really loved this episode, as you could probably tell by my enthusiasm, and I'm super hyped for the next episode. Let me know your thoughts on the video in the comments below. Also, let me know your thoughts on the actual episode. If you like the video, please like the video and subscribe for more videos from me on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you next time. Bye.